Well, I think that they have to think of this as almost like a threat of wiping out a generation. It really is taking a lot of children. As I said earlier, Middlesex County had just yesterday declared it an emergency because they have so many opiate overdoses. Adults, children that are afflicted with opiates, they have a common denominator in their personality. They're usually very kind, very caring, very sweet, very considerate, loving people, and very sensitive. And that seems to be common. The more I read.
When I heard the news,
I'm a pretty bubbly guy, like when I'm not depressed and all bummed out.
turned off the
Like I could have a whole room laughing.
and said go fishing.
I kind of use the drugs as like a coping skill. I started with the drinking and smoking. I was probably about 12, 13. My name is Scott Joseph Roy. I was born 9/11/86, and I originally from Lawrence. Been in Gloucester for 3 years. I'm a user, and I'll be honest. Like I use, but I'm actually in recovery right now, so that's good. My parents got it the worst. They, like they say, you usually hurt the people that you're closest to. Yeah, I know. But I do regret all the stuff I've done to them because they didn't deserve it. But at the same point, it made me who I am. Tried to kill myself with Valiums and heroin, and it didn't work. And I'm glad it didn't work because I'm still here. If I didn't do all that stuff, then I could be a completely different person. Like I think about that too. Like if I didn't do all that crazy stuff, like who would I be? I don't know. I'm starting to like the person I am. Like I was kind of against medicine and stuff like that, but I need it.
I was suspect, but James sat me down in his bed one night and said, "Mom, I have to tell you something. I'm an addict. I'm a heroin addict, and I didn't want to break your heart and tell you, but I have to tell you. And I'd like to go to rehab, and I'd like to try to beat this." And for James to sit down there and tell me that was because he knew there wasn't going to be a recourse, except to help him. I think there has to be a lot of open communication in families so that you know what's bothering your children, so that you know what's on their minds, so that they can tell you if they're having, friend issues or bullying issues or personal issues, or something is driving them to want to take a drug that makes them feel wonderful. Because I did ask James, how does it make you feel? Because I was curious. I don't do that. And he said, Mom, it makes you feel like you're wrapped in a warm blanket and all of your problems disappear and there's just nothing to worry about. And I said, but you understand that when you come back from that, reality sitting there and whatever problem you had is still there and you got to fix it. I think that we have to teach them coping skills. We have to teach our children coping skills. We don't. We solve a lot of it by handing them money, handing them more gifts, sending them on trips, giving them whatever they want. But the best thing you can teach your children is how to cope with adversity, because that is a problem. They don't know how to cope with adversity. Their girlfriend breaks up with them. Their best friends neglect them. Their parents, yell at them. They don't know how to cope with that. James was, and this is really true. People will back me up. It's not being a biased parent. James was the kindest, most loving, most respectful best friend and son you could ever want. In 19 years, he never spoke back to me. He never spoke harshly. He never used a mean word. He always kissed me goodnight. He always checked in. He always said goodbye in the morning and wear your seatbelt, because that's my flaw. Sometimes I don't wear my seatbelt. So James was a very kind spirit. He just really was. Very outgoing, but, sad on the inside from the death of his father, so young, and then the death of his grandmother, who was very important in his life, and sad about that. So, but he was a ball of fun.
You wake up in a dead town. You're sleeping with the windows locked, misguided by your own trail. You're lost. You focus on the features. You followed every movement, stroke. You started around the center. You choke.
I saw he was struggling in May. And he said, Mom, I think I need to go back to rehab again. Well, and this is actually a sad part of it. James had been at McLean's twice, so he was kind of considered, what do you want to call, he had special privileges, like if you shop at someplace you get a card a lot. He had kind of like a special privilege. He should have been considered right away because he was a previous patient. They knew him. I called McLean's 44 times in a week. I stayed home and took half days because they only take, by 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they've discharged anybody they're going to discharge, and they've taken in anybody they're going to take in. So you can start calling at 9 and you can call all the way up to 1. And I stayed home, you don't know how many days, taking half days, working from home, and I'd start calling at 9. Try at 10, 10. Try at 11, 11. Try at 12, 12. Try at 1, 1. We're not taking any more day. Try tomorrow. Did it every day, and I got nowhere. And then one night, around 2 in the morning, when I was frantic because I was trying to find him someplace and everything was full, I said, you can't tell me in 10 days' time you haven't discharged anyone or brought anyone in. And the woman who was on duty in Proctor House said, we've had new admissions all week. Well, the flaw in their system that I discovered was that when you called in, the girl who was on the other end was never recording your call. So it never showed up that Mrs. Carlson called 5 times every day for so many days to get her son in. So when it came to them admitting people, they didn't see how many times I'd called in desperation. And they should have recognized that. Luckily, I did find someone who sat on the board at McLean's, and they're working on that. But I was a little worried before, but I attributed it to anxiety. I didn't see any telltale signs. I didn't see the dilated pupils. I didn't see the pinpoint pupils. I didn't see the behavior. He seemed fine to me. I asked a couple of his very close friends who actually kept a close watch on him. They said, no, Mrs. Carlson, he's okay. We've been watching him. He had an open door policy. One time when he actually did overdose in the house, I could hear him in his bedroom, and it's you know this breathing when you hear it. It's kind of like a it's very restrictive, and I knew what had happened, and his door was locked. I actually broke down the door, and I never fixed the door, so his door was always open to his bedroom. He was not allowed to shut it. I knew he was struggling, and I knew the struggling was coming from anxiety, but he wasn't treating with heroin. He was smoking pot, which, okay, what am I going to do? It's partially legal. And it's a far better choice than heroin, although it can relax you too much to a point where you take heroin. But I was surprised because when he went to bed that night on June 28th, the next morning we were going to drive to McLean's, he and I. We had arrangements. We were just going to go in our car and sit in the lobby. I also know that he had called his best friend at 6:30 on his cell phone and asked him where he went in Manchester, New Hampshire, just in case McLean's didn't work out so he could go there. He had packed his bag. He was going to go. And that morning at around 7:30, I heard him get up and he walked into the bathroom and he was whistling and he was singing and he went and he was brushing his teeth and washing his face and he went back in and I heard him laughing and things. So I was in my bedroom, which is just right next door. And I didn't think anything of it because I usually every morning would go in and check around 7:30 and make sure he was okay. I didn't think anything of it. He was up at 7:30 and he was fine. And then I wanted to go in and talk to him about McLean's and our plans for the day. And when I walked in his bedroom, he was dead in his bedroom chair. He was just leaning back with his head back. And he died of a fatal overdose. He took a chance and it had fentanyl. And he probably thought, I'll take one more hit before I have to go into rehab. Okay? Because I know I'm not going to be able to take any. And this is going to be it. I'm done because I'm going off to college. And he had no idea what it was cut with.
I just feel like I'm almost 30, so it's like it's time to start living life, you know.
Yeah.
Stop with the bullshit. I'm gonna try to get my own place, or at least a room to rent. I don't know. I'm just gonna take it day by day. See what falls into my plate. See what happens. I mean, like the AA slogans are like so cliche, but they're so true. You know, like one day at a time, one step at a time. You know.
His flag that he dropped. When James passed away, initially, of course, I was in shock, and I didn't really do much. I stayed in my room, and I did a minimal amount. But as I read more and more and his friends stayed in touch with me, and a lot of friends, I decided that the best thing I could do is, one, get very active for two reasons: to help other people, to help other parents, and so that James would continue to be in the forefront. The biggest fear of a parent that loses a child is that the child is forgotten. Politically, we have to take a firmer stance on saving a generation of children. We have to increase the facilities. We have to increase the beds. We have to modify the insurances to take care of these children, to get them through and to save them. We have to tell the doctors to hold off on prescribing, and I think we have to modify HIPAA, and then we have to change the attitudes of law enforcement and other individuals. We have to educate parents, everybody, that it's a disease. It's not like we thought, maybe when I was young, that the one who took heroin or LSD was the one sitting on the curb, you know, in these grungy clothes and their hair is greasy and, you know, missing teeth. It isn't. It's the well-dressed young man, clean-cut, walking down the street. You would never believe the people who are addicts if you knew. It doesn't discriminate. A beautiful day like this is the James Day. He's okay. He's going to be okay.